Hello, it's Therese here with IELTS, and today we're speaking about the speaking part of the IELTS exam. And the first thing that I should mention is that the speaking test is the same whether you're doing the academic or the general IELTS exam. So this video will be useful for you whichever type of exam you're preparing for. And so today, just in this little intro, I'd like to explain the format of the speaking test, and then we'll move on to some of the techniques that you can use to get a good result in the speaking test. So so basically the test is 11 to 14 minutes long. That's the total length of the test, and there are 3 sections. So in part 1, you meet the examiner, and generally the examiner will ask you for some basic information. He may ask you your name and also ask for your identification. And you provide your identification, and he or she makes a note of it. So at this part, this is just the intro, so you just have to give some basic simple answers to the questions. And then part 1 begins. Generally, the examiner will ask you about yourself. He or she may ask you about where you're from, your family. So you could be ready to speak a little bit about your studies or about your work. And you have 3 to 4 minutes, which seems quite short, but it may seem long if you don't know what to say. But if you're prepared, it will make things a lot smoother, especially if you already know how to present yourself and how to talk for 3 to 4 minutes. Let's move on now to part 2. So part 2 of the speaking exam, you're given a topic by the examiner. Normally it's on a piece of paper, and you have 1 minute to study this topic. And then you speak with the examiner for about 3 minutes, maybe 4 minutes. So 3 to 4 minutes. And you're probably wondering, well, what type of topic could it be? It could be anything, in fact. But there are certain topics that come up a lot in IELTS. Those topics may be sports, or reading, or television, or movies, or family, or a big one seems to be cooking. I don't know why, but cooking seems to come up a lot. Maybe because cooking is a neutral topic that is very common in every culture. So that's part 2, 3 to 4 minutes. And then finally we have part 3, which is also called the long discussion of the exam, but it's actually not that long. It could be only 3 minutes, 3 to 5 minutes, something like that. So 3 to 5 minutes. And normally in this part of the exam, you elaborate further on part 2, on the topic that was presented in part 2. And there is a slight difference, because in part 2, it tends to be a little bit more neutral. Part 3, you may be asked your opinion or your argument about something. So it's a little bit more challenging and a little bit more philosophical. So that's it. That is the structure of the speaking test. Let's move on now to some techniques for part 1. So during the speaking test, you will cover about 3 topics with the examiner. And for each topic, there are 3 to 4 questions. So normally the examiner will first start by saying, well, let's talk about what you do, or let's talk about where you live. That's normally how the exam starts. So instead of saying, I'm from Prague, and then stopping there, obviously you want to expand. This is a speaking test, and you don't need to be short. You can give information. So improvisation is very important. Aim to give about 3 to 4 answers per question. So that's about 20 seconds of speaking. So for example, where do you live? Well, I live in Dublin, Ireland. It's a small city on the east coast of the country. There's a population of less than 1 million. I live in a house about 10 minutes from the city centre. It's a very green area of the city, and it's about a 10-minute drive from the sea. So as you can see, I'm expanding. I'm not just saying where I live. I'm giving a little bit of detail about where I live, where it's located, its proximity to the ocean. It's a little bit more interesting, right? So how do you expand your answer? Instead of giving 1 point, it's a small town, when you're asked about your hometown, you can give 4 to 5 facts. You can give information about the location of your hometown, the population, interesting museums or local places. So that's the idea, is to give more than a simple answer. And if you don't know the answer, then make it up. So, for example, if the examiner asks you, do you have a pet? And you decide to say, yes, I do. I have a dog, but maybe you don't have a dog, then just make it up. I have a dog called Coco, and he's a poodle, and he's 5 years old, and he's gray, and he's small, and I take him out for walks every day. So make it up, improvise. Go with the flow. Go with the flow, okay? So how to expand your answer. What's your favorite dish? Somebody asks you about food. What's your favorite dish? So you could just say, it's spaghetti. Or you could give a more detailed answer. You could say, it's an Italian dish called spaghetti. So I've given the origin of the dish. I've explained where it's from. Then I'm going to describe some features. So it's made with pasta, cheese, and sometimes with meat. Okay, when, time, how often? I normally cook it at the weekend when I have time. Where? I cook spaghetti at home in my large kitchen. How? Spaghetti is cooked using a pot of boiling water. So you're giving the location, the features, the frequency or time, where, how. So consider where, when, how, why when you want to improvise instead of just giving one simple fact. So what's the preparation for the speaking test? Work on your grammar. Why? Because unfortunately, you lose marks if you use the wrong grammar. So using clear structure and the correct tense is important. And so practice is very important. Develop your range of vocabulary. Reading is a great way to develop your vocabulary. Watching videos of other people speaking is a great way also. Learn how to use connectors. This is very important. The words additionally, moreover, also, on the other hand, for example, in my opinion. These connectors, these linkers, will help to improve your score in IELTS speaking because it shows that you are coherent and that you can be logical and you will improve. Practice, practice, practice. Practice speaking with a friend or a teacher, anyone you can. Record your voice and then listen back. This is a really great technique, and I've used it a lot in practicing second languages where I will record myself and then listen. And usually I'm horrified when I listen back to myself. But it's a good practice because it really helps you to improve. So that's it, everyone. Thank you very much for watching. Take a look at our video on parts 2 and 3 of the speaking test. And good luck. Bye.